Everybody, Mike Beer here with your DRF race of the day for Friday, November 17th. The Autumn Days Stakes at Aqueduct goes as race number 8. It's for older fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up, 6 furlongs, sprinting on the grass. The purse is $150,000. Let's take a look at this big field of 12 entered for the Autumn Days. Sort of a wide open race. So there's some real quality to this field. The 13 and the 14 are entered main track only, and we will only see them if this race somehow comes off the turf. If it stays on, though, you have a pretty good betting race on your hands here for the Autumn Days, if only because the 3 shortest prices on this morning line, I think they're all very strong contenders in here. I don't think that there's a clear-cut standout in here. The number 8 Poppy Flower is your sort of lukewarm morning line favorite at 3-1, and deservedly so. I think her turf sprint form is very good. Now, we haven't seen her since the Saratoga meet, so she's coming in here off of a layoff that extends beyond 100 days. So we'll see if she needs one off the bench. It's worth noting, though, she has been entered at least a couple of times and has had races rained off, so it's not like she hasn't been ready to run. They're just waiting for the spot here. If this race stays on the turf, you'll see her. This is a good distance for her. She's in really good form right now, and she's just a major player in this race. Second choice on the morning line, unfortunately, drew the far outside post. Dance Macabre 7-2 on the line, but she has to break from post 12 here. Just a rock solid 3-year-old filly sprinting on the grass. Very versatile in terms of distance and in terms of running style, so that maybe gives you some hope that she can work out a trip from post 12 down on the inside at 9-2. Is All That Magic, whose turf sprint form since they switched her over earlier this year is just excellent. 1 loss, and that came over a very boggy turf course at Parks in a grade 3. Other than that, she's made no mistakes on the turf, and she also has a little bit of speed. Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector before we move on. The pace projector has a big long shot, the number 2 Lady Milagro, out on the early lead. Certainly possible. That seems to be her best running style, and it's the only way that she could win this race is if she somehow manages to shake loose on the early lead. She does have enough speed to get there. I suspect they will come out of there running All That Magic from the rail. She has speed. They took her off the pace in her most recent start at Keeneland, but her prior start, she was just going forward. She has a lot of speed, drawn to the inside here. You just sort of suspect that they'll probably wind up using it. The 10 Headland, who's also up there, this is going to be her turf debut. She's never run on the surface before. She does have speed on dirt, and maybe she'll transfer that over to this turf course. Again, the 12 Dance Macabre, very versatile. I don't think she'll be gunning for the lead from post 12, but she's fast enough to get forward. And if this pace isn't very fast, she will be right up close, I believe, early in this race. Let's start out with talking about All That Magic, who, again, 9-2 on the morning line. She's a major player in this race, 5 for 6 in her career since she switched over to the turf for trainer Kate DeMasi. The only loss, 2 back, the Turf Monster, a grade 3 against Colts, where she chased a pretty strong pace. That was a total bog of a turf course, and it's just not the kind of race you really want to hold against her. And it was nice to see her bounce back in her most recent start at Keeneland in an allowance race. We'll take a look at the replay of the stretch run of this race right now. This pace was fast in front of her, so they just sort of rated her back. She didn't get outrun, but she was well off of this pace in a clean trip the entire way. And once she gets through that seam there in the upper stretch, you can just see her coming with a really good finish. Gets up the challenge, takes over past mid-stretch, and she is clear at the end with a 93 Beyer speed figure. She's a stakes winner sprinting on turf earlier this year. I guess the main question for her, along with what kind of trip she's going to pull from the rail, again, I just feel like they're going to come out of there running under Carmouche and try to make the early lead or just get right up close. The main question for All That Magic, I guess, is the 6 furlong distance. All of her prior races either at 5 or 5.5. She's going to go 6 here if she can get it. She's a major player. Lady Milagro, we already sort of touched on a little bit. She's probably the speed in this race. It seems like it's just going to be a really hard race for her to win because it doesn't seem like she can really get loose in here, and it feels like she might have to catch a break or two if she's going to upset a field like this one. She is very fast. She's not an untalented horse. It feels like she's in really tough in a race like this. Sterling Silver's the 3, a horse who, you could make the argument she's the most talented horse in the race, but she's another horse in this field who has never run on turf before. So she's entered here, and I think you sort of have to ask yourself, first off, is she just entered here just in case this race comes off? Or does Tommy Albertrani really want to give her a run on the turf course here just to see what happens? It seems kind of odd here with turf season ending in New York, so it's not like they're going to be able to run her in any more turf races. I don't know. I sort of felt like she was probably just entered here in case it comes off the turf, and it comes off the turf. They'll have a very hard time beating this horse. I wouldn't bet her on the turf courses. There's not a ton of turf pedigree here, but her recent dirt form is excellent. And if this race is off the turf, I doubt this field can beat her. Loon Cry is the 4, 6-1 on the morning line for Christoph Clement, a New York bred who has made no mistakes on the turf throughout her career. 6 starts, 4 wins, 2 seconds. She's more of a closing type. She doesn't have to be that far away, but she likes to sit and make sort of one run, which is what she did in her most recent start. And that was just 12 days ago here at Aqueduct. Going this distance, came with a nice run from off the pace to close down entry-level allowance rivals with a 80 buyer speed figure. She's a little slow on figures, but she's very lightly raced. She always shows up. Jose Ortiz has sort of been her regular rider. He is sticking with the morning line favorite, Poppy Flower, in this race. So Irad picks up the mount here, and you can't argue with that. I do think she has to take a step forward here. I also think there's a chance that this pace gets a little bit heated in front of her, and that's what she wants. And overall, she's pretty good. This is not an easy spot for her, but she's a pretty good horse, and she should be a fair price in this race. Can't Buy Me Love, 15-1 on the morning line for your number 5 in here. A filly who is 4 for 21 in her career on the turf, but she's another one who just shows up every single time. She's a quality turf sprinter. She just holds her own against stakes horses, right along. That most recent win, the final start last year at Laurel, she needed a drop into the allowance ranks to get that win. But her overall turf form is very good. She holds her own against stakes horses. They tried to go down the hill with her in her most recent start off a layoff out on Breeders' Cup weekend in the Maddie. She showed more speed than is typical of her that day, and she just faded through the stretch. It wasn't her best performance. Plenty of excuses to be had there, though. This is a better distance for her. There should be some pace in front of her here. She usually comes running at the end. 6 furlongs, not really a big issue for this horse. She's not that hard to make a case for using somewhere. At what is a very fair price, I think, on the morning line. Mail order, the 6 is also 15-1 on the morning line, also trained by Bill Mott, who has the morning line favorite, Poppy Flower. I think she's an interesting horse in here. They tried this race with her last year. She was in good form when they stepped her up. Her final start of the year last year in this race, the Autumn Days. And she didn't run well that day, but I thought she came out of that race with excuses. Didn't get off to a great start, lost a spot in the early going, and then just wound up chasing wide. And that was just the day, I think it was the final day of turf racing in New York last year. And she wound up chasing wide on a day where there was only one turf race on each course on that day, and they were both sort of dominated towards the inside and up on the lead. So I just felt like maybe Mail Order deserves a break for that one. It took her a while to get back to the races this year, but her first start off the layoff, going 6 furlongs again, and I do think this is her distance. Ran really well that day, got away last in a short field. The pace wasn't fast, and she just trailed all the way to the stretch and then made a really nice run through the stretch, second best behind a really good horse in Roses for Deborah. I thought that was a good performance, and they dropped her back to 5.5 again at Saratoga last time. I just don't think she's quite as good going shorter, and she got wired that day. Back out to 6 furlongs for this. This is her best distance. She can be up close, but she doesn't need the lead. I just think she's a little underrated heading into this race, and I like that Bill Mott is going to run her here back to 6 furlongs for what might be her final start of the year. A very limited campaign as a 5-year-old, but this horse is pretty good. She's going to be a good price in this race. Sauvage is the 7, 20-1 on the line. They're going to take blinkers off here. The first 2 starts off the trainer change for this trainer came on dirt. She did not run well in those races. She's clearly better on the turf. They've tried her in 2 stakes races, however, sprinting on the grass, and neither of those went particularly well. And she's a horse who's also never been 6 furlongs, so you have that to worry about as well. It feels like she's up in class here, and we'll see if she can, sort of work out the right trip and then, sort of up her game just a little bit to go with these horses. I don't think she's impossible in here, especially at some kind of a big price. I just thought she was also kind of hard to make a real strong case for. Poppy Flower, the morning line favorite, is the number 8, and to me, she's just a horse to beat. This is another one. This is a good distance for her, the 6 furlongs. Her most recent start, we haven't seen her since Saratoga. Again, that was the Grade 3 Caress at Saratoga, going 5.5. She also faced Roses for Deborah that day, and it was another race that just had no pace at all. And Poppy Flower just sort of likes to take a hold early and then make one run through the stretch. So she has a really big finish, and when they go that slow in front of her, she's just really compromised, and I actually felt like she ran a really underrated race in the Caress. Unfortunately for her, she hasn't been able to get a start in since then. A couple of races have been rained off the turf. So we'll just see what kind of form she comes back in. I mean, you can just look at her overall form sprinting on the turf, going back to last year as a 3-year-old and into this year as a 4-year-old. I think she's been even better, and just easily make a case for her. I think she's the horse to beat in here, and I do think there's going to be enough pace in here to set up her run. Risk Free is the 9, 30-1 on the morning line. She's a maiden. She's 0 for 19 in her career, 0 for 2 on turf. She tends to show up and do her very best. She's got 10 seconds from those 19 career starts, but she's clearly in way over her head in this race. Headland, we talked about a little bit. She's got a little bit of speed. 41 career starts so far for this 7-year-old, none of them on the turf. And now Linda Rice enters here on the grass here second, or George Weaver rather, enters here second off the claim. You know, after finishing a decent run last time in the Grade 2 Gallop Bloomer. They put her on the lead, and she wasn't good enough behind Sterling Silver, ultimately disqualified to third. She's just hard to like switching surfaces. There's not a ton of turf pedigree. It's not like she projects to get loose on the lead in here. I don't know. I thought it was sort of an interesting spot. And again, if she's entered in here hoping this race comes off the turf, she's not the best dirt horse in the race. So I had a tough time making a case for the 11th. It's a keeper. Another big long shot in here. 5 for 32 on turf in her career. The 2 wins this year, both in the claiming ranks with buyers in the 70s. Really cool horse, tends to show up and run her race, can get the right trip in here. Probably not good enough to beat horses like this. Dance Macabre completes the field as far as the turf horses are concerned, and she's just, you know, one of the horses to beat in this race. A 3-year-old. She's a stakes winner at 5.5. She's a stakes winner at 6. She's a stakes winner at 6.5. And she's a stakes winner at a mile. You can do anything with her, and we'll take a look at her most recent start here, the Glen Cove over course and distance last month. A little bit of given this turf course as well. And they just took her back in this race. This pace was fast. They took her back off of it, and you're going to see the big run that she puts in through the stretch here. She gets clear with time down towards the inside, and she makes a really, really nice run in this race to win it going away with a slight new buyer top of 92. Really good performance. She doesn't have to be that far away early, but it's good to know that if there is pace in front of her, she will come running into it with no problem. Just sort of feels like, even with post 12, she can get any kind of a trip in a race. She's very versatile, very consistent, always shows up. She's just a good horse, and she could easily win this race. Although I think you would have to say that, you know, drawing out in post 12 against this field is probably no bargain. 13 and 14 are entered main track only. We'll hope that we don't see them in this really, really good running of the autumn days. This is a really good field. I think a lot of different horses can win here. Before we get to the picks, though, please remember to subscribe to the DRF YouTube channel if you haven't done that yet for all the latest videos. We'll get the picks up there now, though. Again, I think the favorites are pretty strong in this race. I did feel like maybe there was an opportunity to take a little shot against them here, and I'm going to do that with the number 6 Mail Order, who is 15-1 on the morning line. I think she is a little bit better than she looks on paper. I really like this distance for her. I think the 6 furlongs is key for this filly. Those shorter sprints don't really work for her. I think she can fall into the right trip here at a price, and then if she shows up with her really good race, I think she can go with these horses. So I'll take a little shot with her. I went 6-1, 12, and 8 in the autumn days, your race of the day for Friday at Aqueduct. It's a really good one. It goes as race number 8, the approximate post time, 3:42 Eastern time. Good luck.